Egypt was not simply a kingdom. It was the backbone of the ancient world, an empire built on stone, gold, and certainty. Its monuments declared permanence, its priests claimed divine order, and its ruler, the pharaoh, was worshipped as a living god whose word shaped reality itself. To challenge Egypt was to challenge the universe as it was believed to exist. For generations, the Hebrew people lived beneath Egypt's shadow. They were not prisoners behind walls, but slaves bound by quotas, fear, and exhaustion. Each day began before sunrise, with overseers counting bodies and measuring output. Mud, straw, and clay filled their hands as they shaped bricks for cities they would never own. The quotas never stopped. If a worker slowed, the whip answered. If a child collapsed, the line moved on. If a family protested, punishment followed. Pharaoh demanded bricks, but provided less straw, forcing the Hebrews to scour fields after long days of labor, working deeper into the night just to meet impossible demands. Failure was not an option. It was pain. Their children grew up watching backs scarred by lashes. Their elders whispered stories of freedom that felt more like dreams than promises. Hope survived only in secret, passed quietly from parent to child. This was the world Moses was born into, a world where identity was crushed long before the body, a world Egypt believed would last forever. It was this suffering, unseen by Pharaoh's courts and ignored by Egypt's gods, that cried out for justice. And it was this cry that Moses would one day carry back into the halls of power. Long before plagues struck the land, a decree of fear echoed through the empire. Pharaoh, threatened by the growing Hebrew population, commanded that every newborn Hebrew boy be killed. Among those condemned was a child named Moses. His life should have ended at birth, but instead, he was hidden, placed into a basket, and sent drifting upon the Nile. The very river meant to erase him carried him into the heart of power, where he was raised within Pharaoh's own household. Moses grew up surrounded by wealth, education, and authority, trained in Egyptian wisdom, and taught the language of gods and kings. Yet beneath the robes and rituals, he carried the knowledge that he was not truly Egyptian. When he witnessed an overseer beating a Hebrew slave, the illusion shattered. In anger, Moses killed the man and fled into exile, trading palace halls for desert silence. For decades, Moses lived as a shepherd, far removed from empire and ambition. It was there, in obscurity, that he was called to return. Not as a prince, not as a rebel, but as a messenger. When Moses stood again before Pharaoh, he spoke a command that defied every law of Egypt's universe. "Let my people go." Pharaoh refused. Gods did not negotiate with shepherds. The response began with the Nile turning to blood, stripping Egypt of its lifeline and exposing its vulnerability. Fish died, water became poison, and fear spread through the cities. Frogs followed, invading homes and temples, collapsing the boundary between sacred and profane. Gnats and flies swarmed relentlessly, spreading disease and panic, while livestock fell dead in the fields, eroding Egypt's economic strength. Still, Pharaoh resisted. Boils erupted across skin, afflicting priests who could no longer stand before their altars. Fire and hail shattered crops and trees, undoing years of labor in moments. Locusts devoured what little remained, leaving the land stripped bare. Then came darkness, thick and suffocating, a darkness that silenced the sun god himself and paralyzed the nation for 3 days. Yet even then, Pharaoh would not yield. The final plague came without spectacle. At midnight, death passed through Egypt. In every home not marked by blood, the firstborn died, from the palace to the prison. A cry rose across the empire as Egypt lost its future in a single night. Before dawn, Pharaoh summoned Moses and surrendered what pride had protected for generations. "Go," he said, "leave, and never return." The account preserved in the book of Exodus is not merely a story of miracles, but a warning etched into history. Power that refuses humility collapses, and empires that challenge what they cannot control inevitably fall. The night Egypt defied God was the night its illusion of permanence finally broke.